Indian student hammered to death in US. Beaten to death by homeless man. Hit 50 times on head with the hammer. 2 Indian student deaths in America. Should parents be worried?
Lakhs of Indian students go to the United States to pursue their dreams, the perfect American dream as it's known. So many of us either have family there or know friends who have traveled to the United States to pursue their studies. But is the country becoming increasingly safe for Indian students? Are we seeing incidents of racist attacks, incidents like what we've seen right now of a 25-year-old student being hammered to death? There's no racial angle there. But there's still a serious question about crime rates in the United States affecting Indian students, affecting young Indians who travel to America hoping for a better life, a better lifestyle. The incident I'm talking about, which has shocked the country, shocked the world, is of a 25-year-old student who just finished completing his MBA degree, was in fact in Georgia, working part-time as a store clerk, which is very often what Indian students do to make ends meet. And as someone who was trying to help others, there was a homeless man outside who he gave shelter to in the store. It turned out that this homeless man was a drug addict and hammered 25-year-old Vivek Saini to death.
Two Indian students dead in America. Their dreams cut short brutally and families back home left mourning. One of the students, Vivek Saini, was brutally murdered by a homeless drug addict, and what we are about to show you is not for the faint-hearted. This is how Vivek was killed, hammered to death by the homeless man identified as Julian Faulkner. The footage that's emerged from the convenience store where he was murdered, Vivek can be seen in a blue jacket with his back to Faulkner. The drug addict suddenly attacks him with a hammer, hits him on the head, and Vivek immediately collapses. The horror does not end there. Faulkner repeatedly attacks Vivek with a hammer, hitting his head again and again and again. After hitting him over 50 times, Vivek is motionless, and a pool of blood spreads on the floor of the store. The drug addict then walks away, and other customers, scared for their lives, move away from the monster. Faulkner then comes back to the lifeless body of Vivek and seemingly searches his pockets, perhaps in the hope of finding some cash to fund his drugs. The murder of 25-year-old Vivek Saini has shocked the world, particularly because Vivek was providing this homeless drug addict shelter and food and taking care of him. Soon after this horrific video came the news of another Indian student's death. The family of Neil Acharya, a student of Purdue University in Chicago, first took to social media to confirm that their son was missing and last known to have been dropped off by an Uber driver at his university campus. But soon the tragic news trickled in that young Neil's body was found in the college campus. And so far, no news has come in on the cause of the Indian student's death. 2 Indian student deaths in America has sounded off alarm bells among Indian parents, scores of whom have sons and daughters currently studying in the United States. Bureau Report, India Today.
truly mind-numbing footage that of how this young student's life was snuffed out. He'd come from Haryana all the way to pursue his dreams, was studying in the United States for the last 2 years and was planning to live in America for many more years. But unfortunately, his life snuffed out because of his act of kindness to this homeless drug addict. And that's a serious concern that we've seen in the United States as well, of drug addiction. And because of that, crime rates going up. Add to the fact that you have also racist attacks taking place in America. I want to bring in now Geeta Mohan, a Foreign Affairs editor, for more on this. Geeta, what really has the investigation thrown up so far into the 2 deaths that have been reported of Vivek Saini and of Neelacharya?
Well, the investigations are on. The Indian consulates have been in touch with family members. It is a very serious situation. In one case, the investigations are underway because the body of Neil Acharya was found, Akshita, but there are no details as to what really happened or transpired. But in the other case, we do know that the Indian national was hammered to death by an American homeless person. So the man has not just been identified, but also arrested. We'll again have to wait and see what the proceedings really look like. In the meanwhile, the consulate did get in touch with the family members, distraught family members who've learned of their children having been killed or dead in the United States of America. So a very serious situation. There are 2 cases, very, very different from each other. One where the Indian national was bludgeoned to death. The other where the investigations are still ongoing.
All right, Geeta, thanks for those details. But obviously, when you see these kind of incidents coming to light and you've got family or friends currently in the United States pursuing their studies, you tend to question how safe America really is. Is it really the perfect American dream as being projected by so many out there? Or is it mired in all of these issues of safety, of racist attacks, of homelessness and drug addiction, leading to crime rates going up in America, perhaps a lot more than in India? I want to bring in on this broadcast Jitin Chawla, who is a career counselor and, of course, also knows the ins and outs of how many such cases we see of Indian students with big dreams traveling to America. Jitin, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on India Today. Lakhs of students, essentially, I'm sure on a yearly basis, and we have that data also on our screens, travel from India to the United States. It's one of those destinations that many go to sought after for education because it's believed to have a better future for students. These kind of incidents, however, will kind of lead to questions about whether that's really the case.
Yeah, so increasingly as parents engage with us, and one is of course some like good number of students we send. Second is we are also working with a lot of top schools and we run career resource centers there. My teams are going and conducting programs even in Gulf where there are a lot of Indian schools. We work a lot with CBSE, ICSE and a few IB schools. So increasingly this is asked. In fact, when I talk about summer camps to Indian parents, everyone talks about Singapore as a first location, where everyone feels and there's a perception that Singapore is absolutely safe and my child can go even at a younger age. When it comes to US, we see 2 different kind of perspectives. One, on one side, there are parents who are like, they have the top universities, so we want to gun for Ivy League or topmost university in the world. And second, there are people who are still toying with the idea and trying to see whether my child will adjust there, whether my child will get a job there, or even issues of PR, you know. So 1 year back, I could have talked about Canada, Australia, and now increasingly Finland as countries where people can get PR comparatively easy. But right now, I mean, this is very sad what has happened, and I'm sure this will shake up a lot of parents into thinking anew on US. There are reasons for it. We need to understand. But yeah, on one side, there are, I would say, there are cities which are considered to be safe cities. There are cities which are considered to be tough cities.
But that's the problem really, Jitin. You know, what happens inevitably with Indian students is they apply to a handful of universities. If they don't get into the top, they get into lesser known universities, but still take that chance believing that, you know, moving to America means that their life essentially gets better, that they progress. Having said that, but in these lesser known universities, in these towns and cities, is it really safe for students? Would you advise that, you know, if it's towns and cities where you don't have a large Indian population or which is not very popular, not very, famous for having a lot of international diaspora, would you advise them against taking it up?
Not in entirety, because see, somehow, if of course, I mean, we have seen numbers. Thankfully, like we send a lot of students, but I have not encountered any major issue. There have been small cases, but uh, but not so many major issues. Even if you look at cities like Minnesota, if I look at Midwest, so a lot of students have gone, and life is cool. And even where there is a significant American population, I have not seen too much of this thing. But yeah, in the recent times, generally in US, like gun violence, mass killings have increased. So
Exactly.
if again, if you go back 5 years back, 10 years back, and now, so there is change. So yeah, accordingly, we'll also need to change. If I look at bigger cities, the support system may not be there. In fact, I'll have to look somewhere in between. Like Minnesota is a wonderful city with, maybe the Twin Cities having more than a lakh of Indian population, and hence you have Indian stores, you have a system, you have temples, you have Indians regularly meeting each other. So we always advise our students that whenever you are going, get into the Indian diaspora, be active there, be active with whatever festivities are happening, so that
Correct.
you know the set of people, and then
You know,
then you
my
can.
Yeah, Jitin, my
Yeah.
final question to you is, what do universities do? Do they really do anything, these American universities, to ensure safety of students, not just the Indian diaspora, but international students who come in, without any family or friends, who step foot for the first time in the country? Is there any system that's put in place to ensure their safety, to ensure that there is an adequate redressal system?
Generally, they have counseling centers. So, yeah, mental health, there would be a regular workshop which would be happening. Second point is typically students in the initial few days. So there's a orientation happening, and people are getting to know the campus. You are readily, I mean, formally and informally, you mix up with seniors. So I would say, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll say if I'm going to a decent, good university, maybe it's 7, 8
Okay.
is what I'll give to them. That definitely this thing is happening. But there would be universities where probably not so much is happening. And as you rightly said, maybe if I'm looking at universities which are in very far-flung area where maybe people are not that much oriented, or there are some cities where there's an aggressive culture, like Texas has a reputation for a lot of aggression.
Correct.
So
And gun
so they
violence, yeah.
yeah. So there, it might be, it may not be there, but generally, yes, I think universities do take care. Good universities have
Okay.
have systems in place.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks very much, Jitin, for joining us. But I also want to put out another perspective here. For all parents watching this, I'm sure you're wondering whether there's enough of measures in place that if someone is aggrieved, what really do they do? If you have a son or a daughter studying in the United States who's facing an issue here in India, perhaps you can go to the courts. Can you do the same thing in America? I want to bring in Nalini also on this broadcast, who's our legal editor. Nalini, what really is the system that's in place for Indian students there? Can they approach the US courts, or is it more directed towards the MEA and going along that route?
Akshita, there are two main things that need to be taken into consideration when you are not a US citizen and a victim of a crime on the US soils. One is the nationality of the perpetrator, and the second is the nationality of the victim. More importantly, the nationality of the perpetrator. And the reason why I say that is because the US Constitution says that every person who is there on US soil legally, irrespective of what their nationality is, will be given equal protection under the laws, which means protection of their life, liberty, and safety, which is in line with Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which also says that every person who's on Indian soil, the responsibility of protecting their life and liberty is there on the local law enforcement authorities. So keeping that in mind, the prosecution and the investigation of this entire case, or any criminal case that happens with Indian citizens on US soil, the responsibility of that is on the local law enforcement. But at the same time, the rights of the Indian citizens who have been victims of this crime are on the same page as the rights of the US citizens, because it's the responsibility of the local authority to ensure that their life and liberty is protected, even if it's not a crime as severe as murder, even if it's a crime of discrimination or theft. In those cases, it is the responsibility of the local law enforcement to not only duly investigate that crime, but also prosecute that crime in the courts in the US to ensure that the victim, irrespective of where he comes from, gets justice in the case. The second thing is that in case the perpetrator is the state itself, for example, multiple times we see cases where there is a case of discrimination, where there are police officers who are discriminating against people on the basis of their race. In case the perpetrator is the state itself, then of course the Indian citizens on the soil have the right to go to court against the state, either in a civil action or in a criminal action, and seek some sort of compensation on the fact that they have been discriminated. So there are various remedies available. In fact, even the Indian embassies and the Indian authorities who are there on ground in the US have several helplines for any Indian citizens who might need any emergency requirement or emergency help. So there are several legal remedies available with regard to this. And there are several options available with several lawyers who also specifically help immigrant citizens who are caught in such instances abroad.
Okay, interesting perspective that Nalini has also given us. Nalini, just one quick follow-up also on that. The other issue is the lack of awareness of the kind of legal options that Indians really have in the United States. And is that really a problem that you see on the ground, that Indians very often don't know the legal options that they can exercise and thereby lose out?
Well, in fact, Akshata, it's not just lack of awareness, and not just within Indians, but within a lot of immigrants, there is always a hesitancy to report crimes, especially when they are abroad or when they're in the US, essentially because they feel like even if they're victims of a crime and they report it, then there might be some sort of an action taken against them. They might be deported, or they might get embroiled in some sort of a legal tussle that they might not originally want to be a part of. It might backfire, essentially. So keeping this in mind, there is a lot of hesitancy. The kind of crimes that are being reported by immigrants, even in the US, despite the fact that they're there legally, is in fact extremely low due to these reasons. So there are a lot of awareness programs that even the US authorities have carried out. In fact, I was just going through their website a little while earlier, and they've spoken extensively about how they encourage any victim of a crime who is there present legally to come and report the crime if in case the perpetrator is a US citizen. If the perpetrator in such cases is not a US citizen, Akshita, then it becomes a little bit complicated because it is the country where he is originally from, the country where he's a citizen, is the country that will be in the authority to take an action against him and to try him according to their local laws. So the essence of the entire issue becomes which laws will be applicable in these cases. So it is important that all of the Indian citizens who are in the US and anywhere abroad know that if they have been a victim to a crime, they should in fact proactively come out and report it, because the authorities
so the law
are
there
law
in America does apply in
Exactly.
these kind of cases. Thanks very much, Nalini. That was in fact very, very insightful information that you have given us, and one that will help so many parents, families who right now looking at what's happened to 25-year-old Vivek Saini must be feeling extremely unsure of really what's happening in America. 2 incidents of Indian students dying in America in a matter of 48 hours. And obviously, it set off alarm bells for parents. We hope that the information that we've given you also helps you in the course of ensuring that you're more aware of what rights you have if you're someone residing in the United States or have a loved one there.